Hey guys, my name is Jared Alderman. I'm a performance coach, and today I am bringing you a performance session with a student. Her name is Fallon. She's playing tournament poker, playing live and online, and this was her first session with me, and she agreed to be able to put this online so people could see the kind of coaching that I do. And so I hope you enjoy it. I think there's some good lessons here. And now I bring you my session with Fallon. So go ahead. Sorry.
So yeah, right now I'm in let me go ahead and put that. Okay, I'm in a downswing. I'm finding myself in the same amount of makeup that I was in before I cleared makeup.
Okay.
And I feel like it does definitely has to do, like 100% has to do with mental game, because I've only gotten better at the theory.
Okay.
So and I've been studying like crazy with ICM, doing the trainers. I have struggled with the type of study that you taught me because I don't have anybody else to do it with, and
Yeah.
I'm really poor at prioritizing and planning and the structure that you gave me.
Sure.
It's hard for my mind to do that, especially alone, because then I
Yeah.
start to question whether I'm getting the outputs correct. So I haven't been using that form of study, even though I want to, and I know that it's really good.
Yeah.
And I think it would be helpful because the blind level that I actually finished, uh, I've kept that strategy really in my mind. So
Yeah.
I really want to continue to do that. So if you know anybody or can point me to people who are doing this together, I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah. Um, Off the top of my head, I mean, outside of the people you know, like you guys are the MTT players that I interact with the most. So I don't know anyone off the top of my head, but I mean, I think it points to a similar one of the things that you said makes you dislike it. I think also points to a similar mental game issue we could potentially get into,
Okay.
which is like you said, you're worried about getting it right. And I think that's a sentence that I think really crystallizes most mental game for most poker players is being worried about getting it right. And I think that's really where most of my mental game focuses on. So yeah, I guess just starting off, what I think a good question, like I just like a back and forth for you to start off with you. How do you view mental game? How are you what would be your guess as what are the things you're trying to work on in terms of mental game? And yeah, how do you view the like how would you describe mental game um to me, basically?
Well, of course, there's two different arenas. There's the live poker and then there's the online poker. For me, 99% of my game is online.
Right.
Um, I think um, getting distracted and caught up in thoughts that are not about my current table that I'm on, or my current swarm of tables that I'm on.
Yeah.
That's one thing, distractions. And then uh not always able to, like, I feel like sometimes I can get, like, something can happen outside of that, and then I get frustrated inside, and then that leads to like me not being as calm and focused in the game.
Hmm.
And so of course, um live poker, um what happens sometimes is that I can make a mistake or find out that, that something that I did was wrong. And then I can start questioning my future moves.
Yeah.
So, like, questioning whether this is correct or whether I should be doing this. Um, and I know that when I was doing really well, those things weren't happening. Like, I
Yeah.
was actually being really a lot easier on myself. So I'd like to get back to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. I mean, I think the funny thing about why we tend to play better when we're winning is because we just trust ourselves more, you know. It's like we really just we trust ourselves, and it is not, it's funny, it's not that often I find we're not winning. um like the wins don't actually aren't correlating as strongly to our playing well. We just happen to be playing well because we're winning. Like we're trusting ourselves more. Like, you know what I mean? Like we believe in our decisions more. Um, but before we get too much into any like particulars, I kind of just want to build like a framework of how I try to approach mental game to give you an idea of what I view this sort of to look like, and just a sort of a big picture overview of what we're kind of be working on. So I approach this very much like Jason Su. Jason is a good friend, and my the skill that I emphasize in poker to have maintain just to maintain performance is the skill of presence, right? Like how do we be as present as possible? How are we as present in the hand that we're playing, as here as possible? And presence basically has two properties to it in the way I describe it. It's an awareness of our full experience. So meaning our emotions, our feelings, the sense of our bodies, our visual field, everything we're experiencing in this moment. And the second property to it is an accepting awareness, like a kind awareness. It's not just that we are noticing that we are feeling something, but it is that we are not trying to change the way that we are feeling. That is the big part of it, is the not trying to change it. When we find ourselves being frustrated and trying to not be frustrated, this is where all of the mistakes get made. This is like people are running bluffs and spots because they believe if I run this bluff, I will no longer feel frustrated, right? Like that is the sense. But when we can just be present and accepting of the way that we feel, then we can get back to putting our mental energy to the hand that we're in. One of the important things to key into with this is that this is not a logic game. This is not something we tell ourselves in game. This is not one of the most common misconceptions about mental game coaching and the way people approach it, is that this is about thinking the right thoughts at the right moment, right? This is about in a moment where something's bothering me, I need a quippy saying, or I need something, a mantra that I can repeat to myself or something like that. Um, Often it is the case in these difficult moments that it is our emotions fueling our thoughts, not our thoughts fueling our emotions. And so our thoughts will do not move the level, the move the experience of our emotions. And so really what is to be done is just to accept the state that we're in. It's just we are in this state, and this and to sort of widen our awareness to encompass all that's happening. And what we're going to keep coming back to is how do we get ourselves more mentally engaged in this hand, right? And you've seen this kind of content that I put out, which is that every hand is unique, right? And when I work with people on a more wholesome level on like strategy and mental game, I always tell people that like all of our study is great. The moment you sit down to play, ignore all of it. The moment you sit down to play, it all goes out the window, because each hand you're playing now is unique and you've never seen it before. You've never played it before. It's just this hand. And all that you've studied and stuff can inform what you think about this hand. But now it's this hand. And the question is, how do we bring ourselves into a mental state where we're just playing this hand? We're just in this moment. I'm not trying to recall some solution that I read. I'm not trying to recall some piece of advice someone else gave me. I'm not trying to live up to someone else's standard of how to play this hand, because they're not in this hand. And I can never find the right answer for this hand. This hand is its own hand. And I can use these models to sort of, get ideas of what might be good. But when you're looking at a solution output, that is a model for that hand, right? That is that hand. That's not this one. And so what we're going to continue to talk about is how can we notice our mind's inclination to be trying to make this hand something that is comfortable to us. That's really what we're doing. We're trying to, we're like, for example, we're in a hand and we're afraid or we feel inadequate. And this feeling is driving us to try to recall some piece of information we studied at some point to make us feel better, right? We're trying to soothe our feeling of inadequacy, our feeling of fear, our feeling of whatever. And the more that we do that, the further and further we are from the hand that we're playing, right? The further and further we are from the game that we're playing, the more we can draw near to this feeling of discomfort, the more we can just be present with it, be present with this feeling of this feeling of fear, this feeling in our bodies of like, of where, heat and energy, wherever we're feeling it, the closer we are to the hand that we're playing, the closer we are to the hand that we're in. And the more that we can think clearly about the nuance and the uniqueness of the situation. So this is really going to be the progress of mental game coaching. It's going to be how do we allow ourselves to utilize all that we know in game to apply to this unique situation and not try and seek comfort from recalling something that we studied at one point, right?
It's
And
like a recall pacifier.
I mean that's kind of what that's what people use it for, right? Is they want certainty. That's why solvers are so big. People want to know that their play was good. This is why people often go to their friends and like tell them hands after, right? Their bad beat stories and like recall them hands. It's a means of making ourselves feel better when we feel we may have made a mistake.
Absolutely. And so can I just kind of give you I'm going to repeat this back to you a little
Yeah,
bit. So
yeah.
what you're saying is that it is a barrier to pacify myself recalling what a solver output said, or oftentimes this will happen online where I'm in an uncomfortable spot and I know that it's very possible that this tournament and this hand can be reviewed by my coach.
Yeah.
And it's almost often all his words that go through my head.
Yeah.
Because I really do admire him so much. I just want to be a lot like him. And so, and I know I can't be exactly like him, but I want to get as close as I can. And so sometimes I might do the wrong thing because of that, because I'm thinking, oh,
Yeah.
well, what would he do? And then in this spot, am I supposed to do this right now? And so you're saying that having all of those factors in my head can be a barrier. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you think about where your head is at when you're in those mental spaces, it's not in the game,
Right.
right?
It's not.
You're
Yeah.
you're in someone, you're trying to be in someone else's head and what they would be thinking, and you can't do that. It's not achievable. And the truth is, you'll never be your coach. But that's not a bad thing. You have your own unique spin, right? You have your own. There's spots that you will see far clearer. And I tell my students this all the time. Like there's plenty. Your particular experience has leaned you to know certain spots way better than I know them. And it's just the nature of poker. There's too many situations. No one's seen the same situations the same number of times. Nobody, there's just too many. And so the question is, so the question is, what is the mechanism at play? It's not to just have these thoughts and then to feel like, okay, just don't think that, don't think that, don't think that, right? Again, that's not a solution. The question is, why are we thinking it? And it's because
I'm here. I'm here. Sorry.
you're good. No, you're good. We're thinking it because we have a feeling that we're not being present with, and this feeling is animating us to seek some answer, right? And we have all these conditioned habit patterns of when I feel this, I think this, I get an answer, I feel better, right? And we have all of these conditioned habit patterns of running this down. And so this is not this is why this ceases to become a logic issue. It ceases to become a theory issue. It's not an issue of what you know. It's not an issue of what you can think. It's it's how do we get present with how we're feeling? How do we just, instead of using this energy as energy to propel us to find someone else's answer? Can we just connect with it here and take it as, for example, you're wanting to win this tournament. Can we just take it as evidence of what we want? We want to win this tournament, and that's okay. It's okay to want to win a tournament, right? And
Yes.
and I want to make my coach proud, and that's okay. And can we just process those feelings, but not need them? That's the difference. I don't need to make my coach proud. I just have this feeling right now that I want, and I'm scared that this hand might mean both of those things don't happen. And the more we can just become accepting of this is just how I feel in this moment. I feel scared, and I feel like I'm excited for the potential to win a tournament, and I feel I want to make my coach proud. And let me just feel it. I don't need it to go anywhere. I don't need to do anything with it. And then now that I've processed through this feeling, usually what happens is that feeling just passes, like all feelings do. They just go. And then we're just back in the hand. We're just back in this situation, in the hand that we're in. And that's really the path of progress here.
Okay, because I have to say, like, those are all things that, you know, I feel or think. So you're talking about acceptance.
Yeah.
Acceptance, and then the mindfulness. Uh so maybe just, there's some things that I've done for training for like PTSD, where you kind of ground yourself.
Yeah.
You ground yourself in the moment.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have thought of that really for these types of thoughts,
Same thing.
but they are in my way, because going with those isn't helping me.
Yeah. And I just want to really flag something here. There is nothing in your way. It is the sense things just right. It's just what I want to emphasize over and over. It's just conditioned reactions. Things are just flowing. They're just happening. Right. And the question is, can we observe this flow? Right. Can we just, like, the thoughts are still going to come likely. Right. But it's a matter of, are we caught up in a story? Are we believing these thoughts? Right. Am I taking this feeling as evidence that there is something wrong?
Yeah, because if I do the wrong thing, or I find out that my play was incorrect according to the solver, or my coach says, "What were you thinking there? What were you doing? That's not
Yeah.
what I've taught you," whatever. Then I get an intense sense of failure. And I've been trying to, like, for a little while there, I wasn't having that as much. But
Yeah.
then I was also, it was before I cleared my makeup, that I was taking that approach, where I was just like, you know what, to heck with it. Like, if I win, I win. If I don't, I don't. I'm just gonna do my best in every single tournament. And then I started just shipping them, and then it made it really easy. But then when I stopped just shipping them, I started to get back into the questioning mode. And
Yeah. And I think, so yeah, I mean, and that's what we're just going to keep coming back to, right? It's just, how does that feel? How does that feel in your body? Even when, this level of presence and acceptance is going to come up outside of poker. It's going to come up in conversations with your coach, right? He tells you, what were you thinking there? Okay, can we just be present with how that feels? Can we just not take that as evidence that something's wrong? That, like, yeah, like, it is, we don't choose our feelings, and we don't choose our desires, right? It's not something we choose. And so the fact that I feel even a sense of failure, right? It's not to say that our coaching will not resolve around you not feeling that. Now, naturally, I think over time you will feel it less, but that will be a byproduct of the fact that we're just being present with ourselves, and we're less attaching our sense of value to other people's assessments of what we did right or wrong. Right. And that's really what but again, that is a path of progress. It is not something we just get to decide, right? Like, we don't get to decide tomorrow that we just aren't going to attach our sense of value to other people's perspective of us, right? That's not just, we just don't get that choice.
but that's what I want to do,
I
Jared.
know. Yeah. And that's fine. And that's the thing, right? That's fine. That's fine. That's what you want, right? And can we just feel what that feels like to want that? And each moment's just arising for us. And can we just be there with it? Right. So equanimity is this term in Buddhism, which basically just means, like, this even keeledness, this willingness to be with experience, whatever it is. And this is really what we're trying to condition over time is equanimity. And one of the beautiful ways I heard this described by a teacher of mine on a retreat was equanimity is the willingness to be equally near to all things, right? And that's in our experience, right? Just the willingness to like good things come up. And this is an important part of this, right? Like we win something good. Awesome. Draw near to that. Feel it. Like really enjoy it, right? A hand goes well. You did something well. You played well. Enjoy it. Love it. Like really bask in that experience. You played a hand poorly. You feel like a failure. You whatever. That's okay too, right? Whatever you feel, that's okay too. We can just be near to our whole experience. And the closer we draw, again, the more present we are. And when we're in a game, when we're in a hand, we're taking in all of this nuance. We're taking in all of this subtlety. We're taking in, because there's that person acted really quickly and we pick up on that information. And what does that mean? We can't find what that means in a solver anywhere, but you saw it,
Right.
right? You saw that action. Does that change their range in a way that I can now intuit how I might want to respond better? And so it's and again, it's all just about presence, and it's about meeting our experience for what it is. And one of the ways I'll sort of explain how this breaks down at the level of the brain, because I think this is useful. So most people know we have two hemispheres,
Mm-hmm.
but most people, there's a lot of pop science like nonsense about what the two hemispheres do. But there are distinct differences between the hemispheres, and where they measure up most distinctly is the way that they attend to information, the kind of attention they give. The left hemisphere, if you're right-handed, is very it is very conceptual. That's where language resides, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's very conceptual, and it's also it takes things out of their context and calls and draws a box around them, right? And so what your left hemisphere does is it represents things or represents things to you. So it makes them, the left hemisphere is what we use to act on things. So if I want to like build something, I need to be able to draw boundaries around what are things and be like, okay, that's a hammer, right? That's a nail, that's a piece of wood. The right hemisphere is the opposite of this. It sees things in context. It takes in wide pieces of information.
I'm left-handed.
Okay, so it'd be the reverse for you. But either way, right? So it'd be the reverse for you. But the other hemisphere takes in wide context. It takes in a lot of information, and it sees things in their full context. And it is not the brain of doing, it is the brain of being. And so what we're trying to notice is, when does our mind get in this very doing state of mind? I have this feeling I need to do something with it, right? And it needs to serve some purpose. I have this feeling I need to do something. I need to act in some way to fix this, right? And this is a very Western, like a lot of Western culture, and honestly, poker culture is very around this type of logic, right? It's like, okay, this means this, and it's all about breaking things down into concepts. But the truth is, the more you conceptualize something, the further you are from the real thing, right? The more that you draw boundaries around something and represent something to yourself, or make representations of it, the further and further you get from the thing itself. For example, each tree is completely unique, right? It's just its own thing. But when I call it, oh, that's a tree, oh, that's an aspen tree, oh, that's this, right? I'm just getting further removed from the thing itself. And what we're trying to do when we're playing a hand is get closer to the thing itself. And what this will often mean is we get less explicit ways of explaining the hand that we're in. We get fewer representations of it, right? And more of our answers will be, this doesn't feel right, right? And it's just simple as that, right? And if you watch, I stream, and if you watch me play, I just trusting my instincts in spots, right? Like I no decision feels off the table for me, right? I'm just playing by my own rule book.
I saw you bluff with a jack's hand the other day in your cash game, and I was like, wow, that's a very interesting. I don't know if it's like correct or not, but like, yeah, I thought it was really intuitive what you were doing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And when when I'm running a group of, I have a group that I coach for cash games right now, and a lot of them are in my games with me and like playing with me. And the biggest difference that I mark between them and like is the fact that between like myself and them is the fact that I'm just not looking for anyone's approval of what I'm doing. Right? It's just I'm not when I'm in the game, I'm just in the game. And that's not to say people don't have valuable insights and that I don't bounce things off people and that I don't take their advice and that I'm doing tons of things wrong, I'm sure. Right? It's that none of that serves me any purpose the moment I'm playing. The
Yeah.
moment I'm playing, you just know what you know. You're not learning anything new now, right? Whatever you understand, the level of understanding you're bringing to the game, that's what you have.
Right.
Now, we don't need concepts, right? Now we need to be here. And we'll work on creating some sort of some exercises for this, things as simple as, like you said, grounding exercises, like connect to our experience, like feel the bottoms of our feet, right? Do a body scan, scan your body for attention. And the big thing is going to be, can we notice these moments where we shift into this sort of doing frame of mind, where we start thinking things like, what would a solver do? What would Lappy say? Right. And we take this as evidence that I'm feeling something I'm not being present with. Right. That is what's happening here. Once I start thinking in these ways, okay, hang on. I'm feeling something. There's not these concepts don't represent reality in this moment. There isn't this pressing need that I feel there is to do something. There's just a feeling I need to be present with.
That I consider, yeah, things that I consider correct or that I know are correct, and that I'm supposed to always call on the spot, or like there's times that I go against my intuition or how I feel about a spot,
Yeah.
how I feel about the play or whatever. I will go against sometimes what I know, I'll know their exact freaking holding.
Right.
Like I'll know they're holding, but because I'm never supposed to fold this hand in this spot, and there's all these hands that the solver says that they should have, but they don't have those.
Yeah.
And I will make a bad call. I'll know it's a bad call. Well, it's not a bad call. It's the correct call. I'll
No.
make the correct call. But in
And
this
that's the thing.
particular situation, I knew what the opponent was holding. I
And
should have been folding it,
this is
you
what we're
know?
going to continually get back to, though. Like, what is an incorrect call is a call that is losing money, right? It doesn't, or chips, in your example. It doesn't matter. And that's not to say, but like there's this big misunderstanding about solvers. I love solvers. Use them all the time,
Me
right?
too.
I study all the time, right? I
That's
love
how
them.
we met. That's how we became
Yeah,
friends.
exactly. So like I love theory. I study theory a lot. The difference is, and I think you find this among the best players, is those who understand that the solver is a distant relative of the games you're playing. That's the truth. It is not the games you're playing. And that's not to say you can't learn things from them. But like, what is a correct call? You honestly, what keeps regs losing money, and the reason why you'll always be able to make money in this game, and like, is because tons of regs are losing money seeking comfort over EV. That's it. They just want to be able to make a decision that loses them money and be able to find an answer somewhere that says they were right. Right.
Oh, that's
And that,
powerful.
yeah.
Comfort over EV. That's gonna stick with me. Okay.
All right. Yeah. And so the way we do this, though, and I want to, make this distinction clear, because it's easy then to sort of replace, your theory coaching with mental game coaching. And now you're in a hand and you're thinking of all the things your mental game coach told you. And you know what I mean? And you're sort of trying to like do that well.
Sounds like something that I would do.
Yep. So this is just a common process. Um,
Oh,
so what we want to make sure we're doing, and remember, this is not something we do in game. This is something we just decide to be, right? We just want to tend to notice what, again, excuse me, if you find yourself in an uncomfortable spot and you find yourself thinking, okay, what are the things Jared told me about how to handle this spot? Those are signs that we're feeling something that we're not being present with, right?
okay.
It's not something we think. It's something we feel. And so to just then to again to ground ourselves again and scan our bodies. Say, can I find the evidence of this feeling? Can I find it? Is my face hot? Right? Is my heart beating?
Yeah.
Is my like, are my
Usually
hands
those
sweaty?
are the physical signs, and
Yeah.
hands sweaty. Yeah.
Yeah. Are my hands sweaty? So we can just connect with these feelings and then just like breathe into them, right? And just be like, and just allow ourselves to be. And if you feel hooked, this, which is common. And the important thing to flag is to remember that like everything is a journey, right? So we're not going to end this mental game session and you're just like going to go be a mental game wizard, right? We have conditioned reactions that are just going to keep coming up. And we can just be with that though, right? And that's the thing. It's like, we're just, in meditation, you often hear short moments many times. It's not this idea of sustained like calm or peace. We're not gonna have that. But can we have short moments many times throughout our sessions where we just remind ourselves, connect back with this moment, connect back with where we're at. And the best way to do that is, yeah, with those grounding practices you were mentioning, I'm sure. And or just to like just pick an anchor, right? Like pick your hands. Like what do my hands feel like? Ideally we will sort of widen the aperture of our attention to take in our whole body and just the whole moment. We'll feel the air on our skin from the room. We'll feel. And one thing I want to also flag is how much effort we feel we're putting into this. True presence is an effortless experience, right? Because you just are present, right? Like there's not really an option to be present or not. It's whether or not we believe we are, right? It's what are we present with? Are we deeply present with our thoughts about what we should be doing? And so when we find ourselves efforting, that's the other thing that you'll flag. It's the other thing. Okay, again, we're in a mental state of trying to do something. I'm trying to do presence, right? I'm trying to grit and steer myself into
Then
being
you're not
present.
really being present if you're
Exactly.
trying to.
Yeah, exactly. And so you're trying to get somewhere else, right? You're trying to get to the next moment, and the next moment I'll feel better, right? And
Yes.
right, so that's gonna be just the things we keep noticing. Is just and what our coaching will look more and more like is just if we keep doing sessions, which I think would be good. It'll just be more and more like, okay, like what did that feel like, right? And just getting more clarity over time when we're caught up in a thought. Because again, what I was saying about the left hemisphere, or in your instance, your right hemisphere, the part of our brain that thinks very conceptually, what it does very well is create these conceptual boundaries around things and then present them to you as reality. And so in those moments when you're hooked by some sort of concept, that is the world to you in that moment. That is what is the case. And you can often, and so what often happens with people is they start conceptually rendering presence in their mind, right? They start like building a concept of what it feels like to be present. And they think like, oh, I'm being present, but it's like, no, you're still caught up in thought. You're still caught, right? You're still in your head, if you will. Like your attention is very much up here cerebrally, and you're caught up in this thought. One thing that's interesting to me is that there are people who have right hemisphere strokes. So all that's left is their left hemisphere. And these people ignore the right part of the world because they ignore the left part of the world because your left hemisphere sees the right part of the world. Your right hemisphere sees the left part of the world. So if they have a right hemisphere stroke and the left hemisphere is all that's left, they just ignore the left half of the world. They just pretend it doesn't exist. And it's not they can't see it. They literally pretend it does not exist. So like when they eat, men who have this and eat, their wives constantly have to turn their plate around for them to eat the second half of their plate every day, even though they can remember they did it last time. And I'm saying this because your left hemisphere is very good at ignoring things and just pretending what I see is all that's real. That's all that exists. And that's why in these moments where you're very hooked by something, it feels so urgent, right? It feels so real. It feels so, but people who have left hemisphere strokes and all that's left is their right hemisphere have none of these problems, right? None of these exist. The right hemisphere still understands because it takes things wholesomely. It takes in the whole context, right? And so I'm saying this because when you find yourself hooked by something, again, that's like, oh, I'm really like for you, my right hemisphere is really at work right now. Like it really is building a world for me. And can I just kind of drop back? and take in that as part of the context of this moment. Even that story that's playing out, I don't have to stop it. I can just take it in as part of this whole context of this whole moment, and how that feels for me. And and yeah, I think that's just what, again, I think that's sort of just like the intro of what this kind of will look like over time. But I think over time we'll just be connecting more and more to the moments, and just letting things flow, right? And yeah, how
Yeah,
does that
because
feel?
I've oftentimes it just you're really good at this. And the fact that you know me pretty well, I mean, probably helps. But there's times that I will uh talk to Lappy and I'll tell him, that I was thinking this or that, or like I thought that that's a play that we had talked about, and it's actually a different situation altogether. And
Yeah,
I tell him, well, I thought that's what I was supposed to do because that's what that's what you
yeah,
taught me. And he's like, that's not even at all what you should be thinking about in this spot.
yeah, and that,
And I'm like, but that's, I can't, like, I've felt for quite a while that I really struggle with that. Like
yeah,
that part of what I think about poker and stuff is, I do want to make my coach proud.
yeah.
I
That's
don't, I
okay. That's
don't,
great.
I admire him a lot. And
Yeah,
and I've stuck with him, and, we're best friends and stuff too. On top of it, we have a long history, and, I want to do right. I want to make him proud. He is also my backer, and I want to make him money.
sure.
Like I want him to get, because he's invested a lot in me. And so I want him to get the returns of that investment. And, sometimes I think maybe I do think about that too much.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I don't think so. And that's the thing is, can you just accept that as part of your experience, right? That's just, and instead of, it doesn't have to actually correlate to what Lappy feels. And oftentimes these feelings don't. Like, the thing about wanting to make someone proud is in many instances, those people already are proud. And, right. But that doesn't change how you feel about it. And the question is not, it's not, do you have to think that less or anything like that? Can we just, that's part of our journey, right? That's part of
yeah.
our story is I want to make this person proud. And it's feeling, what's funny is like the trying to resolve that feeling again is where these problems come. In a moment, I'm trying to resolve this feeling as though there'll just be a moment where like Lappy's proud and it just floods into my experience, and then that is checked done, and I just get to move on. And no, we don't have to resolve that experience. We can just feel that way, you
Okay.
know? And the
But
thing
I
is,
don't have to let it affect my actions and spots, right? Like,
yeah, yeah, the thing is when we're really present, it won't. The way that it's affecting us is we believe that there's this moment that we're just going to pass over into having made Lappy proud or having made my coach proud, right? That there's just going to be this moment where I take this decision and it's just, that's it. We did it. Like we accomplished the quest. You know what I mean? And that is why it affects our play, is because we're trying to, again, resolve this feeling in us as though this feeling has to resolve in some way.
and then we're taking comfort over EV.
Yeah. And then we're, again, because, yeah, there is an element of when I've done this, this feeling won't be here anymore. When I've accomplished this thing, this feeling will go away. But it doesn't have to. I mean, it will. And the truth is, like those feelings, even the feelings of wanting to make someone proud, they come, they go. In moments we're worried about it, in moments we're not, right? Like it's just something that, but in those moments, and the funny thing is the experience you described of like losing the nuance of the advice that was given in one hand and applying it to another, that is also a a a a shortcoming of presence, right? When Lappy's talking about a hand, what can often be the case is we our brain keys on. This is a moment for me to take something so I can apply it, so I can make Lappy proud, right? And so it keys on to this. And so now though we're distracted by that. We're focused on the future that we get to make Lappy proud, as opposed to taking in the nuance of the hand. And then the next time we're playing, again, our brain goes, oh, here's our time, here's our moment to make Lappy proud. And again, our mind is somewhere else. And we're losing the nuance of this hand. That doesn't apply. Right. And so it's not a matter of whether or not we feel that way. It's a matter of that energy of whatever that feeling is then propels us into a world of our own creation. And now this moment is seen through the lens of, I need to make Lappy proud. And that's what this moment exists for. This moment is a moment to make someone proud. As
And
opposed,
that has nothing to do with Evie.
yeah, it has nothing to do with it, right? Yeah, it has nothing to do with it.
Okay.
Does that
Oh,
make sense?
wow. This is so good. This is good stuff. This is eye-opening. I'm really, really glad we're doing this.
Yeah, I'm glad to.
Because I would like to be more present in the game and doing the things that uh that I know I'm capable of,
Yeah.
and starting to see the results of that. I know results aren't everything either, but I seem
Yeah.
to have better results when my mind's in a better place. So
Yeah. I mean, I think, and again, it's, what's funny is there's these things in poker, right, where we have conditioned these sort of ways we feel we have to respond when we say something. So I say, like, we'll have better results. And then we feel like we have to say, of course, results aren't everything, because in poker, it's sort of taboo to say that we want better results. And you'll start noticing all the ways poker has conditioned a culture of self-judgment and of lack of presence, right? If you feel you want results,
I do.
feel that. Yeah, feel that, right? That's totally fine. That now, and the thing is, the difference between being present with something and accepting it means that doesn't mean we will get anything, right? It is just a recognition that I want this. And it's not a statement that therefore the next tournament I play will deliver this. It's not to say that, like, I need this, or that, like, I can't find well-being if I don't get this. It's not to say any of that. It's just to recognize that I want this. I want
Okay.
results, right? And oftentimes results come along with for a lot of things, right? And one of our sessions will be to really dive into what are your wants, right? Like, what are the things you want? Because it's really important to connect with what we want. And if results are one of them, great. But oftentimes that symbolizes other things to us. It symbolizes respect. It symbolizes
Yeah.
self-worth, right? Like, it symbolizes our having made it in poker.
That I
And
made the right decision to
yeah,
to go down this path. And
exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean, I've spent the last 5 years of my life completely devoted.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, then it feels like sometimes in my head, like it feels like, well, that would just be a waste.
Yeah. And so this is an important distinction, because what we're going to dive more and more into is, can we distinguish between what we want and what we don't want? A lot of times our mental game is like, because even the move you just made is like, what would happen if I didn't get this? And so now we're focusing on trying to avoid something as opposed to focusing on moving towards something, right? And so we're going to really we want to foster deeply this feeling of want, actually, right? We want to really feel our wants clearly. We really want to see, like, I want results. Right? I want this. And the more that we get to just be okay with, like, I want, and again, that doesn't mean we cling to them. That doesn't mean we say, like, I need this. Like, there's a different sense of, like, drawing near to our wants is just with this acceptance of, I don't choose what I want, and this is what I want. And as much as I might want this, that doesn't mean this will be the case, right? But that doesn't have to have anything to do with what I'm going to work towards making happen, right? And so, yeah, um, yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it. But
Thank you so much. This has
yes,
been very enlightening. And yeah, and I would appreciate to get a copy of this because
of course.
I didn't record it.
Yes, that's okay. I think they only allow one person to record anyway. So if I'm recording, I don't think you can. But
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
no, I'll send you a copy as soon as I'm done.
Thank
But
you.
yeah,
I want to be able to look over it again and maybe write down some more things because I was starting to write as we were talking and I thought, that's not very present in what I'm listening to right now.
yeah,
And even though it'll help me remember, I could just get a copy
yeah.
and then do that.
Perfect. And so what I'll say is, the thing I want you to be sort of working on is just noticing while playing, but also throughout your life. What are the moments where I can catch myself sort of running along with a thought of something I need to do? And
Mhm.
can I notice that and come back to my body and find the energy of what might be propelling this? right? And that's just a simple exercise that we can just start doing as often as we can. And again, short moments many times. What's going to happen is you're going to do that, come back to your body, you're going to be like, and then you're going to get carried away by thought again, right? Like in the
Yeah.
next moment, right? And that's just what's going to happen. But the more that we condition this kind of presence in ordinary moments and simple ones and like low stakes ones, the easier it is to achieve in really high stakes moments and moments that really matter to us.
Okay.
Right. So that's where we want to start, is actually just ordinary everyday moments. Usually what I give people after the first session is pick one activity a day, something you do every single day, if it's making coffee, showering, whatever, and use that as your experience, as the moment you're going to practice presence, something, you enjoy, you like doing, and just every day, this is my practice of being present. I'm just going to connect. Like if I'm making coffee, I'm just going to feel my hand, every movement that I do. I'm going to treat it like almost like a meditation, right? I'm just going to be very aware of what's happening in my experience while I do it.
Yeah, and this could actually help for stage presence too,
Yeah.
in music.
I
So
One of the people I work with is a comedian, actually, too.
yeah, and I'm
Work.
I'm doing vocals in that band now, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna be on stage several times as soon as I get back from WSOP. And sometimes I get a stage fear, a stage fright or
Yeah.
whatever. And that causes mistakes
Yeah.
in the techniques that I use for vocals. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Definitely.
thanks. This is gold.
100%. Awesome. All right, Fallon. Well, let me know whenever you want to do another session, and we'll get at it.
All right, thank you so much.
Yep. Absolutely. Bye.
Have a good day.
You too.